My mother-in-law accused me of cheating during my miscarriage. Now she tells everyone the baby wasn't my husband's. I don't even know how to begin this story without feeling physically sick. I lost my baby 4 months ago. It was the most painful, devastating experience of my life. One day I was pregnant, glowing, hopeful, planning names, and the next I was lying in a hospital bed, empty. Broken. And while my body was still bleeding, while I was still trying to breathe through the shock of it, my mother-in-law looked me in the eye and accused me of cheating. I remember her exact words like they're burned into my brain. "Maybe it's for the best," she whispered coldly in the hallway outside my hospital room. That child probably wasn't even Nicholas's. I stood there in my hospital gown, weak, shaking, barely able to process what had just happened to me, and she delivered those words like a dagger straight into my chest. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I was too numb. Too shattered. My husband, Nicholas, was inside the room at the time. He never heard her say it. And when I tried to tell him later, between tears and nausea, he brushed it off. "She didn't mean it like that," he murmured. "She's just upset." Upset? She was upset? I tried to let it go. I told myself she was grieving in her own twisted way. But deep down, something inside me fractured that day. A line I never thought she'd cross had been obliterated. And it got worse. Weeks later, when I finally returned to work, I started getting the looks. The whispers. One of Nicholas's cousins, barely someone I even knew, texted me late one night asking bluntly, "Is it true the baby wasn't his? That's what your mother-in-law said." I felt the ground tilt beneath me. She was spreading it. The lie. The poison. The most disgusting, degrading accusation she could have thrown at me at my weakest, and she was telling people. Planting it like a seed in every corner of the family. I confronted Nicholas again. He seemed uncomfortable, caught in the middle, but instead of standing up for me, he did what he always did when it came to his mother, he minimized. "She's old-fashioned," he mumbled. "She doesn't think before she speaks. It's her grief talking." I snapped. I couldn't help it. My grief? I choked. My grief? I lost a baby, Nicholas. Our baby, and instead of defending me, you're defending her? We fought. Hard. For the first time since the miscarriage, I screamed. I cried. I told him I couldn't live in a house where I was being treated like a criminal for something I didn't do, something that never happened. And still, he wavered. I moved in with my sister the next day. Just for a few days to clear my head, I told him. But the truth was, something had already died inside me. Not just the child I had lost, but the trust. The love. The feeling that this man, the man I thought I could lean on, had my back when I needed him most. Since then, the rumors have only grown. I've heard them all now, that I cheated. That the baby wasn't his. That I faked the miscarriage to hide my shame. Each lie hits harder than the last. And the worst part? My own husband still hasn't put a stop to it. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to heal when the very people who should have held me are the ones tearing me apart. All I know is this: I can't stay silent forever. And one day soon, they'll regret every word they ever whispered about me. I'm the one telling this story. A woman. A wife. A mother who never got to hold her child. The days after I moved in with my sister were a blur of exhaustion, grief, and rage. My phone kept lighting up with messages from Nicholas, half-hearted apologies, awkward check-ins, and then, when I stopped replying, a desperate voice note begging me to come home. But what home? The place where my pain was met with suspicion? Where the person I trusted most let his mother humiliate me in front of an entire family? No. I wasn't going back. Not yet. Maybe not ever. My sister, Clara, was the only reason I didn't fall apart completely. She made me tea. She let me cry until I couldn't see straight. She even offered to drive over to my mother-in-law's house herself and settle it the old-fashioned way, as she put it, half joking but with that fire in her eyes that told me she meant every word. But it was when I went back to collect a few things from the house that everything spiraled out of control. Nicholas was there. Waiting. He looked like hell, unshaven, pale, eyes hollow. He reached for me the second I walked through the door. "Please," he whispered, "please come home. We can fix this." I stepped back. I could still feel the weight of those whispers on my skin. "Fix what?" I asked, my voice flat. "Your mother's lies? Or the fact that you stood by and let her ruin me?" He winced, but I could see the same thing I'd seen in him for weeks: cowardice. A man too weak to pick a side. "Look," he murmured, running his hands through his hair, "she's scared. She lost a grandchild too. I know she said terrible things, but we've all been broken since." "Stop," I cut him off sharply. "Stop making excuses for her. I need to hear you say it, Nicholas. Did you ever, even for a second, believe I cheated on you?" The question landed between us like a bomb. He didn't answer right away. And in that silence, I knew. I knew. I felt the air leave my lungs. My hands trembled. "Oh my God," I whispered. "You did." He stepped toward me, frantic now. "No. No, I didn't, he faltered. I was confused. She got into my head. She said some things that made me," he exhaled sharply, his voice breaking. "I don't know. I didn't know what to think." I blinked, the room tilting sideways. "You thought I cheated?" He looked destroyed. "I don't think that now," he said quickly. "I swear. I know you'd never. I know it was our baby. I wasn't thinking straight. But it was too late." Those words, "you thought I cheated," lodged inside me like glass. The worst part wasn't even the lie itself. It was that the man I built my life around hadn't trusted me when it mattered most. I grabbed my bag. I didn't say another word. As I reached the front door, I stopped. Something inside me, the last shred of self-respect I was clinging to, made me turn back. "You tell her," I said coldly, my voice like ice. "You tell your mother that if she speaks my name again, if she so much as breathes another lie about me, I'll burn every single bridge this family has." "And you?" I met his eyes. "You decide who you are. Because right now? You're not the man I married." I left without looking back. Clara hugged me so tightly when I got home I nearly collapsed in her arms. She didn't say, "I told you so." She didn't need to. And that night, for the first time since the miscarriage, I let myself think something dangerous: maybe I'm better off without him too. I didn't know it yet, but that was the first step in taking my life back. And I was just getting started. The days that followed felt like walking through smoke: nothing solid, nothing clear, just this heavy, suffocating fog of betrayal and heartbreak that clung to everything. I didn't answer Nicholas's calls. I didn't reply to his messages. He left voice notes, some begging, some angry, some pathetically tearful, but I ignored them all. I couldn't bear to hear his voice. The man I thought would fight for me had folded the moment things got hard, and no amount of apologies could erase that. But what truly pushed me over the edge was her. My mother-in-law. She didn't stop. Even after everything, even after I walked away. I started receiving screenshots from friends, old friends, distant relatives, people I hadn't spoken to in months, showing me what she was posting on Facebook, what she was whispering at family gatherings. She's hiding something. Grief makes people lie. I'm not saying the baby wasn't his, but the innuendos. The poison. She wasn't just destroying my name, she was turning my grief into her weapon. And Nicholas? Silent. Pathetic. Useless. Clara sat me down one evening after dinner. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You need to stop letting them control this. You need to own the truth." I shook my head, exhausted. How? Every time I tried to defend myself, I looked like the desperate one. They'll say I'm lying, or crazy, or bitter. She's turning it all on me. But Clara didn't flinch. Then you burn the house down, she said flatly. Metaphorically. You stop playing nice. You stop letting their narrative be the only one out there. Her words stuck in my head for hours after. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything I'd lost. The baby. The marriage I thought I had. The dignity they'd stripped from me piece by piece. And then, something inside me hardened. I sat up. I reached for my laptop. And I wrote. For the first time, I told my story. I wrote it all out, raw, brutal, honest. The miscarriage. The accusations. The manipulation. I didn't name them, but anyone who knew us would know. I ended it with one simple truth: grief is hard enough without the people you love turning it into something ugly. I won't be silent anymore. I know who I am. And I know what I've lost. I posted it online. Public, and then I went to bed. By morning, everything had changed. The post exploded. Friends. Neighbors. Even distant relatives I barely knew commented, messages of love, of support, of absolute outrage. Some said nothing publicly but texted me privately, "I'm so sorry for what you're going through." I always knew something wasn't right with them. But the real blow? Her mask slipped. She posted a furious response on her own page, defensive, bitter, laced with lies so thinly veiled even people who didn't know the full story could see through them. And Nicholas? He finally called. Angry. Hurt. Why would you post something like that? Why are you airing our private life online? I almost laughed. The audacity. Because you wouldn't defend me, I said quietly. Because you let her drag my name through the mud while you stood there and watched. He went quiet. Then whispered, "I never wanted this." I swallowed the lump in my throat. Neither did I. But here we are. I hung up. And this time, I didn't cry. The world knew the truth now. And for the first time since the miscarriage, I felt the first flicker of something I thought I'd lost forever: power. And I wasn't done. Not yet. The aftermath of that post changed everything. I woke up the next morning to over 200 comments, private messages flooding my inbox, even colleagues I hadn't spoken to in years reaching out to check on me. And for the first time since this nightmare began, the silence, the suffocating, isolating silence, was gone. I wasn't invisible anymore. I wasn't the villain in someone else's story. I was seen. But with visibility came consequences. And they came fast. First, it was Nicholas. He showed up uninvited at Clara's apartment, pale and frantic, his hands shaking as I opened the door. Clara stood behind me, arms crossed, ready for war, but I stepped outside and shut the door between them. We stood in the hallway, just the two of us. His eyes were red. "Why?" he whispered, broken. "Why would you post that? Why would you humiliate us like this?" I actually felt something snap in me. Us? There was no more us. "You're upset about that?" I hissed. "Not about what your mother did to me? Not about the fact that I've spent 4 months drowning in grief while you stood there and let her destroy me?" His jaw clenched. "You made it public." I laughed. A bitter, joyless sound. "She made it public, Nicholas. She did it the moment she started poisoning our family against me." He shook his head, hands in his hair. "She's broken. She's not herself since." I cut him off, sharp and cold. "Stop excusing her. Just stop. She wasn't broken when she accused me in the hospital. She wasn't broken when she told people I faked my miscarriage. That was her. That's who she is. And you let it happen." He looked lost. Pathetic. Small. I felt nothing. "You want the truth, Nicholas?" I whispered. "I don't think I can come back from this. I don't think I even want to." He froze, and for the first time I saw it. The fear. The realization. That I wasn't bluffing. That this wasn't just another fight I'd eventually back down from. I left him standing there. The second consequence came 2 days later, my mother-in-law herself. She called from an unknown number. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail, her voice shaking, but not with regret. With rage. "You've humiliated this family," she spat. "You're destroying Nicholas. I've been nothing but good to you, and this is how you repay me? You should be ashamed of yourself." I sat on the floor, listening to it on repeat. Nothing but good to me. I could feel the laughter bubbling in my chest. Dark. Hollow. There was no shame left in me. Only exhaustion. And then came the third consequence. The one I didn't expect. One of Nicholas's cousins, the same one who'd texted me about the cheating rumors, messaged me again. But this time, she wasn't spreading lies. This time, she was apologizing. She told me something I hadn't known, that this wasn't the first time my mother-in-law had destroyed someone with rumors. That years earlier, she'd done the exact same thing to Nicholas's ex, sowing doubt, lies, until the relationship collapsed. I sat there frozen, the words burning on my screen. This wasn't just about me. This was her. This was who she'd always been. Manipulative. Controlling. Poisonous. And suddenly, the pieces clicked. Nicholas wasn't just spineless. He was a product of her. Conditioned. Broken in ways I couldn't fix. I called Claire, my lawyer, the next morning. "I want a separation," I said flatly. "And I want it fast." Her voice was calm, supportive. "I can draw it up today." As I hung up, I felt the weight lift, piece by piece. It wasn't over yet. But I was taking control. And this time, they weren't going to break me. Not ever again. The moment I said the words "I want a separation," something inside me finally clicked into place. I wasn't scared anymore. I wasn't confused. I wasn't that fragile version of myself who sat in a hospital bed thinking that love would be enough to fix this family. Love wasn't enough. Loyalty wasn't enough. None of it mattered when the people around you were willing to shatter you to protect their own lies. I met with Claire that same afternoon. She was efficient, calm, methodical. She asked me questions about finances, assets, anything that could become leverage. I realized, with a sick twist in my stomach, that I didn't even care about the money or the apartment. All I wanted was my freedom. My dignity back. As we were wrapping up, I asked her a quiet question that had been clawing at the back of my mind for weeks. Can she be sued for defamation? For the rumors about the baby? Claire tilted her head, thoughtful. Yes. You'd have grounds, she said carefully. But the bigger question is, do you want to take this further? Legally, you could. Morally, that's your call. I nodded, heart pounding. I wasn't ready to answer yet, but the idea of fighting back, of not just surviving but exposing her, sat with me long after I left. That night, I finally told my parents everything. I don't know why I'd waited so long, maybe part of me was ashamed, maybe part of me still hoped it would blow over, but when I sat at their kitchen table and told them about the miscarriage, the accusations, the public humiliation, my father's hands actually shook with rage. I should have known, he muttered under his breath. That woman's always been toxic. My mother just held me. No judgment. No questions. Just silent, steady love, the kind I hadn't felt from my in-laws in years. I cried in her arms like I was 12 years old again. The next morning, Nicholas texted me again. Can we talk? I miss you. Please. Let me fix this. I stared at the screen for what felt like an hour before typing back one word, no. And I meant it. But life has a way of testing you when you think you've finally regained control. A week later, my sister burst into my room holding her phone, her eyes wide with fury. Have you seen this? I took the phone from her hands and felt my entire body turn to ice. It was a social media post, my mother-in-law's. A long, sickeningly sweet paragraph about grief, about family falling apart, about how some people can't handle the pressure of marriage and loss. She never used my name. She didn't have to. The comments were brutal. Sympathetic. All siding with her. Stay strong, mama. Some women are just cruel. You're better off without her. I actually felt physically nauseous. She wasn't stopping. She wasn't capable of stopping. Even when I was gone, even when I was already planning my legal separation, she was still desperate to control the story. To paint herself as the victim while I was the villain. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break something. But instead, I called Claire. I'm suing her, I said flatly. Defamation. Character assassination. I want everything we can throw at her. Claire didn't even hesitate. Good, she said. We'll file it by the end of the week. For the first time in this entire nightmare, the rage didn't feel useless anymore. It felt powerful. It felt right. They thought they could break me. They thought I'd stay quiet. They thought they could rewrite my story without my voice. But they were wrong. And they were about to find out exactly how wrong. The decision to sue her changed everything inside me. It was like I'd been walking through quicksand for months, each betrayal, each lie, each whisper dragging me further down. But the moment I took control, the moment I said no more, something lifted. The weight didn't vanish, but for the first time I was standing on solid ground. Claire moved fast. The cease and desist letter went out within 2 days, and I filed the initial claim for defamation right after. It wasn't about money. It wasn't even about punishment. It was about the truth, about putting an end to the cruelty that had nearly destroyed me. I kept it quiet at first. I didn't post anything. I didn't tell mutual friends. I just waited. The backlash was immediate. Nicholas showed up again, this time, not to beg, but to lash out. I wasn't surprised. I didn't even flinch. He pounded on my sister's front door, his voice rising. You're out of control, he yelled when I finally stepped outside. She's my mother. She's grieving too. I crossed my arms, heart hammering but my voice steady. Grieving doesn't give her the right to ruin my life. He ran his hands through his hair, spiraling. Do you have any idea what you're doing to this family? I let out a short, bitter laugh. This family? You mean the one where your mother slanders me in public and you stand there like a coward? The family where I bled in a hospital bed and she accused me of cheating while you said nothing? That family? His eyes dropped. And that's when I knew. I'd already lost him long before the miscarriage. I just hadn't wanted to see it. I'm filing for divorce, I added quietly. The papers are already in motion. His head snapped up. No, wait, but I was done. I didn't need to hear his panic. I didn't need another pathetic apology. I just turned, walked back inside, and shut the door in his face. And for the first time in months, I felt free. The next few days were surreal. The legal letter worked faster than I imagined. My mother-in-law deleted every single post. I watched with dark satisfaction as her online sob stories vanished one by one. A forced, empty silence replacing the lies. But what caught me off guard, what I never saw coming, was the messages I started receiving after that. From other women. 2 of them, to be exact, both exes of Nicholas. Both people I barely knew, one I'd only met once, years ago, in passing. They reached out quietly, cautiously. Both said the same thing, they'd been through the same nightmare. Different lies, different circumstances, but the same pattern. The same manipulative mother. The same destruction. One of them even told me she'd left Nicholas after discovering his mother had convinced him she was unstable. I sat there reading those messages, my hands shaking. It wasn't just me. It was never just me. I was just the latest target in a cycle that had been going on for years. I shared the information with Claire. She smiled grimly. If they're willing, their testimonies could strengthen your case. And just like that, everything flipped. I wasn't the victim anymore. I wasn't the one drowning. I was holding the matches now. And I was ready to set the whole rotten facade on fire. Because no matter how far they pushed, no matter how deep the lies ran, they forgot one thing: I had nothing left to lose. And that made me more dangerous than they could ever imagine. The more the truth unraveled, the stronger I became. The two women who had reached out, Sophie and Amandine, agreed to give written statements for my case. I met them both in person, one after the other, and what they told me shook me to my core. The stories were eerily similar: the manipulation, the jealousy, the quiet, corrosive way Nicholas's mother would plant doubts, twist conversations, spread rumors until the relationships imploded. Sophie told me, her voice shaking, that Nicholas had once accused her of embarrassing his family after his mother implied she was mentally unstable. Amandine said she had left after finding messages his mother had sent behind her back, lies, half-truths, cruel digs meant to drive a wedge between them. And in both cases, Nicholas had stood by his mother. I remember sitting in that cafe after Amandine left, my hands wrapped around a lukewarm cup of tea, my heart racing. It hit me then with terrifying clarity: this wasn't just grief. This wasn't just a one-time betrayal. This was who they were. And I had been too blind, too trusting, too desperate for family to see it. Claire's face lit up when I told her. "This seals it," she said simply. "The pattern of abuse is undeniable." But while the legal side of things was finally moving in my favor, emotionally, I was still drowning. The nights were the worst. I'd wake up gasping, flashes of the miscarriage tearing through my mind like shards of glass. The blood. The hospital lights. The cold silence. And then, like salt in the wound, her voice, soft, venomous: "Maybe it's for the best." I'd sit up in bed, soaked in sweat, shaking so hard I could barely breathe. Clara started sleeping on the couch just to be near me. She never said a word about the panic attacks. She'd just sit beside me, sometimes holding my hand, sometimes letting me shake in silence until it passed. I don't know what I would have done without her. And then came the call I never saw coming. "Nicholas." I almost didn't pick up. My finger hovered over the screen, my heart pounding. But something, curiosity, maybe closure, made me answer. His voice was hoarse. "Hollow." "I signed the papers," he murmured. "The divorce is happening." I stayed silent. He exhaled shakily. "I don't even know who I am without you." I closed my eyes. "You should have thought of that before you let her destroy me." "I was scared," he whispered. "I didn't know how to choose between you." That was the moment I felt it, the last thread snap. I spoke calmly, steadily. "It was never about choosing between me and her. It was about choosing between right and wrong. You failed. And I don't forgive you." He started to say something else, but I hung up. I sat there in the dark for a long time after. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I felt nothing. And somehow, in that nothingness, I found peace. The case was moving forward. My truth was finally being heard. The lies were crumbling. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was winning. And the final blow was still to come. One they would never recover from. The day of the court hearing arrived like the closing of a wound. It wasn't a full trial, just the formal presentation of the defamation case, with both sides represented. I sat at the back with Claire, calm on the outside but with my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. My mother-in-law was there. Nicholas too. She looked smaller somehow. Pale, worn, but not because she regretted anything. I could tell from the way her eyes kept darting around the room. She was cornered. Exposed. And for the first time, powerless. Claire did what she always did: efficient, composed, merciless when it counted. She laid out every detail: the miscarriage, The hospital confrontation. The online slander. The pattern of past behavior backed by Sophie's and Amandine's testimonies. And then came the hardest part, my own statement. I stood, my hand steady for the first time in months, and spoke. I told them about the miscarriage, the devastation of losing a child, the unbearable physical and emotional pain. I spoke about the moment my mother-in-law accused me, how she planted the lie, how she spread it like wildfire through the people who were supposed to be my family. And then I said the words I'd carried for so long. I didn't just lose my baby that day. I lost my marriage. I lost my dignity. I lost the belief that the people I loved would protect me. And I will not let anyone, no matter who they are, rewrite the truth of what happened to me. The room was silent. Even she, my mother-in-law, looked frozen, her mouth pressed into a thin, brittle line. Nicholas never looked at me. Not once. When it was over, the judge didn't need time to deliberate. The ruling came swiftly, in my favor. She was ordered to issue a formal, public apology. To delete every post. To pay damages, though I'd already told Claire I didn't care about the money. This was never about that. This was about the truth. I walked out of that courthouse into the sunlight, my lungs filling for what felt like the first time in months. Clara was waiting outside. She threw her arms around me without a word. We stood like that for a long time, people rushing past us, the noise of the city blurring into nothing. It was over. I didn't hear from Nicholas after that. He signed the divorce papers without another word. The apology from his mother came through a lawyer, cold, robotic, meaningless, but I didn't care. The people who tried to break me failed. They took everything they could. But they didn't take me. In the weeks that followed, I started to rebuild. Therapy. Walks. Little joys, coffee in the park, dinners with Clara, nights where I didn't wake up shaking. The grief is still there. The baby I lost is still a hole in my heart I know I'll carry forever. But the shame? The humiliation? The self-blame? Gone. I survived them. I survived her. And I survived him. And somewhere deep inside, I know this, the woman I am now, the woman who stood in that courtroom and spoke the truth without trembling, is stronger than I've ever been. And I will never let anyone take that from me again.
Follow me for more stories.